Hello, Rob Watson here from Decentered Media, and what's the date? It's the 17th of May, and this is a little vlog, almost like I suppose an audio diary is the best way, or video diary, sorry, is the best way to describe this, about a project that I'm starting to work on, which relates to the Build Back Better process here in Leicester. I was fortunate enough to get some funding from the Audio Content Fund to develop some programs which are going to be broadcast on Leicester Community Radio, Radio Sierra and Cohenor Radio here in Leicester, about the process of civic and social renewal and what the kind of policy agenda is, but how that relates to everyday experience, ordinary people's experience. And so I'm at the beginning of the process of thinking through how this is going to work and how this might be shaped. And I'm starting to have conversations with people who are leading civic society organisations about thinking about how this is framed. So I'm working with Mark Charlton, who's the head of public engagement at De Montfort University, and they kind of have taken a lead on shaping this process, working with Leicester City Council. It's editorially independent of that because the radio stations are editorially independent of this process. So, but it's kind of asking the question, if we're building back better, or whatever the present phrase is that's being used, what does that mean in practice? What does that mean to people living their normal lives? How does that translate into something that we can feel tangibly and that will make a difference to us on a day-to-day level? So I'm kind of starting the process of thinking about this, and one of the challenges excuse me, one of the ways I'm thinking about this is it doesn't follow a typical journalistic model, a journalistic approach, or a program making approach. I'm using a community development model of engagement which comes from community media. So I'm not prying into or investigating something that is hidden away. I'm not predefining what the story is. I'm not sitting in a room thinking, this is the story I've got to tell, and this will get us the ratings that we want in order for us to be able to sell advertising. What I'm trying to do is to create this kind of safe environment in which the people who participate in and are willing to share their stories and their experiences that are relevant to the wider issues really come forward through a safe space and come through in a way that's engaging. So there's an awful lot more, I hope, listening going to go into this process. There's a lot more deliberation. There's a lot more facilitation of engagement, just to try and develop a sense that we ought to be thinking through the process, the way that we tell our stories and the way that we identify what our stories are going to be about. That has to change in the future as well. So I'm grateful that the Audio Content Fund has seen something in this process that we can kind of maybe flag up to say this is different. So I don't come from a background of having the label a radio producer. I've come from a background of kind of teaching radio and community media, and a lot of that is about training and development and engaging with people and research, ethnographic research, but it's not about ever having labels, producer, researcher, executive producer, those kind of things. It's different than that, and yet all of those tasks and jobs are part of what you do. You work in a very multi-dimensional kind of way, and one of the big one of the main focuses that I want to bring to this process is the sense that it's about listening and it's about engaging with people, and it's about taking people along with you and discovering in the process something about the lives of people, and where they're coming from and what they're motivated by and how that connects with an issue. So kind of the scope of the Building Back Better process is, for example, skills development. If the economy is to be renewed and moving forward, and we've got significant challenges around the climate change agenda and artificial intelligence, and skilling up for a world of digital engagement, what does that how does that translate in practice when many people are faced with challenges of exclusion and marginalisation because they can't access digital tools or digital platforms? And the answer isn't to march in and presume that we know, and that we say that we need to do X, Y, and Z because we've read it in a government or think tank report. But we have to find out what the local solutions are, and we have to find out what the local resonance is and the relevance is to those actions, and to help people to share their stories. So I'm drawing on a model of engagement which is about social action, which kind of says you're more likely to engender change if the people who are sharing the story of change are like the people who are most impacted, maybe negatively, by change. So you're not preaching at people, you're not offering instructions, you're not using celebrities. You're really kind of empowering people to listen to people like us, like ourselves, and that's a difficult process to manage. And you've got to be attuned to things in a different way. And as I say, you've got to kind of create a safe space and an environment in which this trust is built. So a big part of this process is going to be safeguarding, and it's going to be about following the kind of engagement patterns that each of the partner organisations that I'm working with are going to be facilitating along. So this isn't journalism. It isn't about prying into something to look for the dirty linen and to give it a public airing. This is really about creating an environment in which people want to share and want to come forward with their testimony and their account of how they deal with challenges and how they overcome them. I like the kind of phrase that my friend Lucinda Guy says, which is that if something is, if the program makers do something with make their programs with love, then you're as likely for the listeners to understand what that means and how that is expressed. Similarly, I'm going to be using some of the techniques that were developed by John Costa, who ran Citizen's Eye for quite a long time, up until about 5 or 6 years ago, which are things like the community media cafes. So it's a different way of engaging with people and finding out about them and drawing on that kind of experience and bringing that together as a set of stories that you can include in a set of programs. I'm also going to be talking with people at the universities who've got that broader overview and can contextualise the experience that we're, you can talk about the numbers if you like, the broader numbers and the processes. But what I'm really interested in is how does this fit with our daily experience, because we can look at the numbers but it doesn't tell us what that means and what that feels like as individuals, and our cultural expectations shape what that feels like as well. Our social background, our social expectations shape that as well. So we just an interesting process to try and guide me through that. I'm regulated by, I've taken out regulation or signed up for regulation within Press, which is the independent media regulator. So hopefully that adds a layer of confidence building in the process. So if anybody's got a complaint about the material that I'm producing, then there's a standardised, recognised complaint process that people can follow, and the details are on the Decentered Media website. Likewise, there's a safeguarding policy that I'm going to follow. I'm going to develop a safeguarding policy for the program itself, the production method itself. So there'll be a set of criteria of things that I will and won't do, and kind of engaging with people. And I heard a story earlier today that a vulnerable person had agreed to an interview with a journalist, and the journalist was just incredibly rude and pushed them until they got the answer that they wanted. And that kind of experience is, it's no wonder that people are skeptical about the media process. And there's kind of two ways to think about it. First of all, people might have had a bad experience, and secondly, people might just not understand how the British media journalism process works. So it's all very well coming in to find your story, but if you're not prepared to be engaged with the community in the long term to help support and facilitate those stories, then you can't just go in, helicopter, drop in and drop out again, and then the story moves on. That's an all too typical complaint that people have about about exclusion and about marginalisation, is that you suddenly get a load of a story breaks in a town or a community and it lasts for 2 weeks and then it moves on. And we see that time and time again. And that layer of infrastructure of local storytelling, media engagement is something to explore and facilitate with this. So I'm going to keep a diary, an audio and video diary as I go along. My thoughts might change. My experience might reshape how, and demonstrate to me that I need to think and act in different ways. I'm happy to have conversations about this process and to draw on other people's experience and to develop this as an open, collaborative process. I certainly don't want to see it as something which is shut off and private rooms. I will respect confidentiality and privacy as much as possible, but my thoughts I'm quite happy to extend out into the open public domain, and I don't want to spoil what will be in the programs, but there'll be conversations that will be extended through podcasting and through Twitter and YouTube and other forms of social media. So I think it's really important that we kind of have a transparent process of development for our program making these days, and demonstrate what we're learning. I think a comment that was made to me the other day was that we really do have to be thinking about becoming a learning society, a learning communities. That's what will define us in the future, is what's our attitude towards learning, what's our attitude to the future, what's our attitude to people who are different than us, what's our attitude to events and processes that are not what we're traditionally dependent or reliant upon, and how will they help us to think about where we fit in the world. So for me, that building back better is about how we engage together. How do we share that knowledge and that experience and do it in a positive way, rather than being dividing each other and kind of blaming each other or being resentful of each other. What is it that enables us to feel confident about facing change and to have a sense that we've got a stake in it as well? Because too many people are perceived or perceive themselves as being at the bottom of the pile when it comes to change, and are constantly kept there, while other people seem to kind of reap the rewards. And is that part of what we need to think about for the Building Back Better approach, a more egalitarian, more inclusive way of supporting people, a more open, socially democratic way of kind of sharing our experiences rather than just what we can get for ourselves? I don't know, maybe that's part of the conversation that we need to have, and we need to think about how the social economy model will work in practice. And there's a lot of ideas out there, and it'll be good to kind of facilitate an approach and a forum to discussing them. So I'll do this on a regular basis. If you want to find out more, I'll be posting it up onto the Decentered Media website, which is decentered.co.uk. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. Look for Decentered Media. And if you want to email me, it's robwatson@decentered.co.uk. Just get in touch. And if you've got a story that you think might fit the profile of this program, then I'll be interested to hear from you, and I'll follow up. But for now, thank you very much.